Shana Tova. So most of the time through these holidays, I'm not up here, but I'm rather there and there and there. And although I've got a little bit more of a home base this year, thanks to our beautiful chapel. But I'm truly thankful each year that I get to be here for this service each year, because I always feel my High Holy Day period gets started off so beautifully by Shir Isaiah and the melodies that they bring. And tonight, especially from Ritzei through Avinu Malkeinu, the melodies, both timeless classics and contemporary classics, touched me, and I hope it had the same effect on all of you. So this past summer, as we have for many years dating back to when we still lived in St. Louis, my family spent a week at Bethany Beach. The trip is always fun and always has its moments of relaxation, but also its moments of challenge, because for as many years we had to try to keep 2 children occupied in a place that's meant for a little bit more of a calm and quiet getaway. This past summer, however, felt different. My children are now teens, 16 and 13, now 14. They don't need the kind of attention or care that they did when we first moved to Maryland when they were 4 and almost 2, or the constant activity that they needed when they were, say, 9 and almost 7. And in a particularly quiet moment this summer, Ari was on his own at the small basketball court on site, and Josh had gone to the condo in the next building where our friends were staying. My wife commented to me about how much calmer being at the beach felt this year. And as we discussed it, it dawned on me that what we were feeling was a sense of contentment, that we had reached a certain point in our lives where at least this aspect of life had become easier. And over the many years at Bethany, putting in a lot of effort to keep our children entertained, we decided we had earned that. The idea of contentment is in this broader category that contains many positive emotions that leave us feeling good and generally positive. We have many words for these types of emotions, both in Hebrew and in English, but I'm going to focus in on 3 English terms: joy, happiness, and contentment. And I'll give a Hebrew equivalent as we move forward. The idea of happiness in a broad sense is not a modern concept in the least. We often consider the distant past as a more difficult time, and that is true in many ways. But our ancient predecessors didn't know what they were missing with things like modern medical care, indoor plumbing, rapid transportation, and TikTok. Well, maybe they weren't missing everything. Those were things that were just simply inconceivable to them. Therefore, within their own setting and time, they found reasons to feel the same emotions we do today, just often in very different ways, and sometimes in similar ways as we do today. Going all the way back to the Torah, Sarah, our ancestor, names her son Isaac, meaning he will laugh. But she was recalling how she laughed when she was told she would become pregnant at the age of 90. While her laugh was initially sardonic, mocking the idea that she could become pregnant at such an age, once Isaac is born, she chooses that name for him because of the earnest laughter that Isaac now brings to her life. The book of Psalms is filled with reference to these emotions, and this is where we can start to distinguish between them. In her article, Moments of Joy and Lasting Happiness, Dr. Christine Abart, a consultant for biblical pastoral care at the St. Rupert House in Traunstein, Germany, concludes that according to the Psalms that she explores in her article, joy is either a spontaneous reaction to a stroke of good luck, or a sign of a fundamentally positive way of life. When referring to the former, the idea of a stroke of good luck, Dr. Abart looks at Psalm 16, verse 9, which, after the author is rescued from danger, reads in part, Vayagel kevodi, which she translates as, my liver cheers. Now in her reading, Dr. Abart discerns that the ancient authors of the Psalms saw the idea of joy, or gil in Hebrew, as coming from the liver, thought in ancient days to be the source of the four humors that dictated personality and emotions. In contrast to gil, joy, Dr. Ebart cites Psalm 19, also verse 9. Pikudei Adonai yesharim misamchei lev. The precepts of our Adonai are right, rejoicing the heart, which may sound familiar as it's a verse that we usually recite here as we return the Torah to the Ark. She interprets this verse as the author of the psalm finding a general sense of happiness within a general adherence to the laws and customs of the Torah. For the ancient author, this emotion of happiness, or simcha, is more than just momentary, but resides in and is governed by the heart. And to Dr. Ebart's analysis, I will add the idea of ashur, which in my reading is an even more sustained sense of well-being, or what we would call contentedness. And to complete the ancient body part of that metaphor, I would say that lies within our minds. This is evidenced by the very first words of the book of Psalms, Ashrei Ha'ish. Happy is the person who has not followed the counsel of the wicked nor taken path of the sinners. This psalm then continues to describe someone who is rooted in the ways of God as the source of their state of their contentedness, or ashur. Further, Psalm 84, verse 5 contains the words, happy are those who dwell in your house. They forever praise you, Selah. In Hebrew, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yehalelucha Selah. I'm sure many of you could continue, but it's not the same psalm at that point. Now, as many of you know, as I just mentioned, these words serve as the opening of a morning prayer called Ashrei. In both its original and its liturgical context, this term Ashrei is used to describe someone who knows who they are, who knows what they stand for, and knows their place in the world. It describes someone living a life with a sense of contentment. In our own day as well, we have that ability to find moments of joy, times of happiness, and a sense of general contentedness as well. We will begin with joy, gil, that momentary but very real feeling of elation. In her 2018 book, Joyful, The Surprising Power of Ordinary Things to Create Extraordinary Happiness, Ingrid Fettel-Lee says that in a moment of joy, we are carefree, freewheeling, and fancy-free. That we find a sense of freedom in that rejoicing. For myself, I go back to May 9th, 2004, the day I was married. And that moment that I entered the social hall at Beth Tefillah in Baltimore, hand in hand with Rachel, and we went directly into the Hora, surrounded by family and dear friends, celebrating our special day and feeling like I was floating on the dance floor and being carried by family and friends. And of course, the being carried happened in a literal sense a little later on. It is also in a sense of escape from difficult surroundings as well that we can feel the joy. Some years later, in January and February of 2011, I was in a difficult place emotionally. I was riding out the last months as the rabbi of a congregation that was not going to survive much longer. And it was a difficult time in general to find a new position. One thing that kept me going and motivated through that time, however, and it seems frivolous, but it was my favorite football team, the Green Bay Packers. They were on a seemingly miracle run to the playoffs and ultimately a Super Bowl title. Each weekend through that run, I got to escape from the challenges I faced and vicariously enjoy this amazing athletic feat. It gave me something else to focus on, and I credit those moments of joy that I felt through that time as giving me a chance to step back from my challenges and realize that I was looking at the wrong type of jobs. Only a couple of weeks later, I submitted the revised resume that would mark my shift from a pulpit rabbi to Rabbi Educator. Joy, Yil, however, is fleeting. And while it plays an important and crucial role in our lives, we need more than fleeting moments. The idea of happiness, simcha, is deeply rooted in our Jewish tradition. On our festival days, Sukkot, Passover, and Shavuot, we are commanded to be happy. If we can be commanded to be happy is a whole different topic. But on Sukkot in particular, the phrase ach sameach, nothing but happiness, is used to describe our ideal emotional state. The traditional celebrations for each of these holidays, in fact, lead to the idea of happiness. On Sukkot, the major activity is to eat and drink in our sukkah. On Passover, we joyfully tell the story of our escape from slavery and freedom over 4 glasses of wine. And on Shavuot, it is traditional to stay up all night in joyful learning, although wine is a little less helpful to that goal. Motivational speaker and author Brianna Wiest, in her book 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think, wrote several essays on the idea of happiness. In one essay, she encourages the reader to build what she describes as a happiness tolerance. That when we are in a state of happiness, to embrace it, to let it linger a little while longer, and not let the inevitable challenges that may follow bring us down too quickly. Now, many people here have gone to summer camp, or you have sent your children, or will send your children, or currently send your children. I'm really lucky. I still get to go each summer to camp. And I go to a camp that has become particularly special to me. At that camp, which is a camp for artistic and creative children, please ask me about it later if you have such a child, the campers and even staff members are often coming from environments that do not fully accept them for who they are or do not allow them the full expression of their creative impulses. During the 12 days or more for the staff and for campers who are lucky enough, the campers and staff get to do just that. It is a place of happiness, where even the creative struggles are a part of the building of skills and passions. During that time, the campers and staff can embrace that sense of happiness and, as Wiest says in a different essay, make happiness, simcha, the byproduct of doing things that are challenging, meaningful, beautiful, and worthwhile. And finally, we get to a contentedness, ashur. If joy is often externally created and momentary, and happiness is a mix of internal and external and lasts for longer periods, then it stands to reason that contentedness is something we have to find mostly from within in order for it to be truly lasting. Our traditional texts that we explored earlier tell us that following God and doing what God asks of us is that pathway, and we must find it within ourselves to follow that path. In our modern world, different than the biblical author's world, we understand that there are many paths that can lead to a life of contentedness. But still, our customs and our traditions are there to help guide us, and our community is there to support us on our journey. That said, when we are in a state of contentedness, we often feel a stronger connection with the world around us and are more able to appreciate our place within it. It uplifts us. That uplifting, rising up, creates a feeling of transcendence, which is a feeling of the world being very large and ourselves simultaneously feeling very small, and also an understanding of our own place within the vastness of our world. To reference Lee's book Joyful again, she quotes Neil Armstrong, who in a very literal sense was uplifted higher than any other human ever. And he was reflecting on his experience setting foot on the moon and said, "I put up my thumb and shut one eye, and my thumb blotted out the planet Earth. I didn't feel like a giant. I felt very, very small." This idea of transcendence, of seeing things from afar and even from above, as Lee states, is why houses of worship are often tall with lofted ceilings, why skyscraper observation decks are so popular, and even why music will shift into a higher key to give that feeling of going up. Contentedness is a result of stringing together moments of joy and happiness, and increasing our tolerance of those moments, despite a natural resistance to wait for the other shoe to drop. And it's realizing that there doesn't have to be more to be content, even when you would still like more. Wiest, in yet another essay, says that people are often afraid that being content is equal to giving up on wanting more. But that does not have to be the case. We can let ourselves be content in an achievement, a status, a state of being, even as we acknowledge it's not perfect. That's because there is no perfect. People in great jobs and great families may still wish they had a little more money or time, but can still be in a state of contentedness. And people with lots of money and a great job can wish they had more in terms of family, while also being quite content with the life they lead. Contentedness, ashore, is not a goal. It is understanding the goodness of what we have and being thankful for it, even as we may strive for more. On this day of Rosh HaShanah, among many other greetings Rabbi Axler shared earlier, we wish each other a Shana Tova, a good new year. I was told at a young age that we do this because as Jews we view goodness as more important than happiness. As I've grown and learned, I've realized that's not true. Goodness is not exclusive from happiness, and in fact they go hand in hand. Doing what is right and good may sometimes defer moments of joy and even periods of happiness, but should never block out those moments. Ultimately, goodness, that which we seek for ourselves and others on this day, is the same as contentedness, a state of being satisfied with who we are, satisfied with our lives, and yet still seeking to do more and be better. On this day of Rosh Hashanah, may we seek out ways to discover and embrace moments of joy. May we be open to and hold on to those moments of happiness that come our way. May we disturb our sense of contentment enough to make it stronger and inspire our desire to increase goodness in our own lives, goodness in the lives of those close to us, and goodness in the lives of all people in our communities and in our own small way to all people in the world. May this new year of 5784 be for all of us a year of joy, a year of happiness, a year of contentment, a year of goodness, and a year of peace. Shana Tova.